But when you're in that middle, you're at a point that you can leverage where you've been, but also you can see where you can go. That's magical.
I'm Patrice Washington, and this is the Redefining Wealth podcast, where authenticity leads to alignment and abundance. Join us each week as we peel back the layers on what wealth truly means and dive into conversations that inspire, connect, and empower you to live your richest life. Get ready to challenge the status quo. It's time to redefine wealth for yourself. You're listening to the Redefining Wealth podcast with Patrice Washington. This is the space that you come to each and every week to learn more about what it means to chase purpose, not money. And you know here that we talk about the 6 pillars of wealth. And one of those pillars is the work pillar. It is about living your life's purpose. But what happens when you feel yourself ready to evolve that purpose? What happens when you feel like it's time to pivot in what you do in your career? You might need some support. So I brought someone here today to help us have that conversation. I'm super excited. Listen, if you are new to the Redefining Wealth podcast and you don't know anything about the 6 pillars of wealth, I do want to invite you to check it out, because here we understand that wealth is so much more than money and material possessions. It is definitely the original definition of wealth that we rock with here. And that is the condition of well-being and happiness. And so there are some pillars in your life that if you're not careful, they will impact your ability to produce the financial wealth you say you desire. So go to patricewashington.com/quiz, take the quiz, figure out which pillar you need to do some work in this season to make sure that when you get the money, you can keep the money and you're not doing things to self-sabotage. So my guest today is Adrion Porter. And when we come back from the affirmation of the week, you're going to hear the conversation. But let me tell you a little about him. Adrion is a speaker, a workplace strategist, a LinkedIn top voice, and the founder of Mid-Career Mastery, a consultancy on a mission to help people like us in what he calls the magical middle. Y'all, we are in the magical middle. That is midlife, mid-career, middle management. He helps us get unstuck so we can thrive at work and maximize our impact on the world. And at the heart of his mid-career mastery work is Adrion's signature framework, the Mastery Map, which I know we're going to get into. He is also the host of the groundbreaking Gen X Amplified podcast and creator of Fabulous Over 40 Spotlight series on LinkedIn. We'll have to ask him why I have not been spotlighted yet at this big age, but okay. I am so excited for us to hear from Adrion Porter. Check out the affirmation of the week and we'll be right back. This week's affirmation is, I embrace the magic of this season. This era in my life is a magical time of transformation, not a messy one. And I embrace it with open arms. I am ready to dream a new dream, one that aligns with my truest desires and my deepest purpose. I release all resistance to change, knowing that this season is an opportunity for reinvention and growth. With every step I take and every word I speak, I welcome the beauty and wisdom that come with embracing this next part of my life. I trust that the best is yet to come, and I move forward with confidence and excitement for what is unfolding before my eyes. Declare with me today, I embrace the magic of this season. All right. Welcome to the Redefining Wealth podcast, Adrion.
Hey, Patrice, what is going on with you? I'm so excited to be here. I feel so special.
I'm so excited to have you. I was telling Adrion, it's nice to see him, outside of Starbucks. So we happen to live in the same area and we have bumped into each other at Starbucks on multiple occasions. So this has been in the making for some time, but I believe in divine timing because we are at, the first quarter of the year where a lot of us are thinking about, Adrion, like, what's next? how are we going to reinvent ourselves? How are we going to evolve and pivot and transform? But that gets a bit more difficult midlife because that first part of life, you've already experienced some success. People already know you for a certain thing. They already expect a certain experience from you, and the audacity of you to think you can dream a new dream.
Yes. Yes.
The audacity. But that's what you help people do.
Yes, that's exactly it. You said it so well. Yes, I do.
So let's get into this. How did you become someone who helped other people discover the magical middle? What was your midlife experience?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. And again, thank you so much for having me on, Patrice. I'm a fan of you, a fan of your show, a fan of your pillars, a fan of your awesomeness. So I feel very honored to chat with you again outside of drinking caramel macchiato in Starbucks. So it's good to be on here on the platform. But thinking about how I got started in this, honestly, Patrice, it was from my own personal experience as well. You know, they say a lot of times creators of movements, platforms, content, experiences, some of the best ones or the ones that people hope they receive value are the ones that come from their own stories. And for me, it came from my own quote unquote malaise that I was feeling in my pivotal middle season of my life when I was in my early 40s, you know, after a 20 plus year career working for some great companies as an executive, whether it's HBO in New York, Citibank in New York, Cartoon Network here in the Underturner Broadcasting in the Atlanta area. I was laid off in 2011, and it was the year I actually turned 40. And so during that time, like many others who are laid off, they start to go inward and figure out what is my next, as you mentioned earlier. But I noticed that I was feeling this feeling of, am I sure? What do I want to do? I'm feeling this feeling of malaise and ennui. And I noticed that a lot of people that were in kind of my age range, right? My stage of life, they were also questioning what they wanted to do. And so then the pandemic happened years later, right? In 2020. And that to me just magnified the malaise. It amplified the angst. And I wanted to do something like Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I created a platform, a podcast, first a podcast, Gen X Amplify, because I like to amplify my proud Gen Xers who are often underrepresented and overlooked, but we're highly powerful between, I like to say, those brilliant boomers and magnificent millennials. So that started off with a podcast. So I wanted to create a platform to interview and showcase the stories of many leaders who happen to be in my generation. But out of that work, I wanted to do something that was even more just fitting to the angst and the ennui of people in the middle season. And so therefore the consultancy, Mid-Career Mastery, was born. And again, it's really helping people what I call the magical middle. A lot of times you hear about the messy middle, right? The midlife crisis, the malaise of the middle. But I wanted to reimagine that phenomenon and reinvent the wording, because when you think about it, Patrice, in the middle is where balance lives, right? That's where the strength is. And I wanted to reimagine that wording. So Mid-Career Mastery is my consultancy. I like to think of it as a thought partner to people and organizations to help people, whether it's mid-career, midlife, it can be middle management, in the middle of a transition from where you are to where you want to be, helping those individuals thrive and create impact and maximize the impact on the world. And that's literally how it started, from my own personal experience to solve a problem that was massive, and also that probably, hopefully it will end, but we're all going to reach, either we're approaching the mid-season of our careers or lives, we're in it, or we're trying to get out of it. And that's what I do.
Let me ask you a question, Adrian. When you were laid off at 40, do you believe that that was a pebble or a boulder? And let me give some context to this, because here I teach from the boulder effect, which is many times when it is time for us to change or evolve, it doesn't start at a boulder. It comes at a pebble where maybe there's this hint or nudge, a small whisper that's kind of like, you need to do something else. You need to go. But it doesn't hurt. It's very light. It's very, it's easy to ignore or dismiss. Then there's a rock. So something happens. It's a little uncomfortable, but it's not the worst. Like, we've seen worse. So we're not tripping,
Right.
And then there's the boulder, which is the maybe death, unexpected death of someone we love, or a diagnosis, or a dismissal of some kind, divorce, something happens. And I have found personally that whenever I'm hit with a boulder, if I'm radically honest, there were pebbles and rocks that got ignored first. In your case, do you feel like the layoff at 40 was a boulder, or do you think it was the pebble on the way to something else as you continued on?
Wow, that's a great question. And I love the way you framed that because nobody has ever asked me that in that context. I would say if I had to just answer quickly, it would be one of the possible pebbles that was leading to other boulders. Because again, yes, I got laid off the year I turned 40, but there were other nudging instances that happened even preceding that where I was always thinking about, I always wanted to create my own thing. Always, but I didn't really land on a product or service yet because I was still growing and learning. And then that event just happened to kind of push me over the edge and externally. But then during that season, even after that, I went through my 40s were very much, as they say, and the science has proven this, and we can get into the science of it, which I'm always a fan of the data and the science, because there is a natural feeling, a plummeting of unhappiness in life and work satisfaction that happens in your middle years. It's called the U curve of happiness that's been validated. But the layoff happened. And then, I lost a few family members along the way, and even after that, very close to me, both of my grandparents who co-raised me. I lost my best friend who was my age at the time. Some years after that, we're exactly the same age, and he died unexpectedly in a car accident. He was the best man at my wedding. So that happened when I was 45, 46, or so, and totally shake my world. I lost other family members. Then there's just the natural feeling that you get when you're in this U curve. There's studies have, I just briefly go through it. So years ago, there were economists that were studying the relationship between work satisfaction and age. And they noticed that there is this natural U shape that happens as you approach your age. So you start off at young adulthood, and let's say 18 or so, at a certain self-reported level of happiness that they were tracking. But as you continue to age, it goes down and it starts to lower and lower and lower, forming this U shape. And the lowest level, the nadir, is actually on average 47.2 when you're 47 years old of age. But then as you get older into your 50s and later in your 60s, it goes up again. So it forms this natural U shape. That's why a lot of people, when they think about the midlife crisis, which to me sometimes is a very overt characterization, but there is this natural malaise feeling that happens in your middle years because number one, I think it's biological. I think we're wired that way because of the studies have proven that. Number two, you're dealing with the traffic jam of life. Focus on career. You're focused on family. You could be getting married, unmarried, in a relationship. You possibly, if you have rearing kids, you're looking at your own internal growth. That's a lot that's happening in addition to so I was going through that. So the external dynamics that were happening to me with the deaths of family members, so the laying off from the job, me being focused, on my family, my children. So yes, that was to me those bountiful boulders that start to even happen after the fact. And so yes, it was the rocks, the pebbles, the boulders, the shells, all of that was flowing in the tide toward me while I was laying on the beach, just helpless. And then, I saw a pathway and said, let me try to solve this problem. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, Patrice, it wasn't just me. And it was satisfying to land upon the research to let me know that I wasn't alone. It was satisfying to let me know that through my own primary and secondary research that this is a natural occurrence. But to me, it's not about observing, okay, this is what happens, but then how do we get out of it? How do we get past it? How do we solve the problem? That's why I created what I'm creating and doing what I'm doing. So thank you for asking that because I love the boulder and the pebble analogy.
Yeah. And what really made me ask you that question is because I have found in working with my clients that oftentimes when people speak about being terminated or laid off, that there was already something brewing, and not that it was external. Oftentimes it's internal, and it's just that like knowing that that something needs to change, that there's just things going on, the atmosphere is shifting, but we can't always put our finger on it. And I love that when you said, I always wanted to create my own thing. I think about how many people are listening right now and they're in that bottom part of the U curve
Yes.
and they're thinking to themselves, I have been talking about wanting to start my own podcast for 5 years. I have been talking about wanting to create a space for this particular demographic for 7 years. I have been talking about, and to me, even that I have been talking about sometimes are the pebbles and or
Yes.
the sand
Yes.
on the beach. It's the sand. It's like
Love it.
yes, all these little drops, all these little, and many of us ignore it. But
Oh, we
I
do.
like the traffic jam of life. I don't like it because I'm in it, but I like that you gave me language for it.
Yes.
Man, the traffic jam of life is real.
It's the traffic jam of life. I mean, we're all on this journey, this road together, the traffic jam. But in any traffic jam, in any travels toward your destination, when you're feeling stuck, all of us get stuck. You need to get unstuck and you need a map. And that's why, even with the work that I do, consulting, advisory, speaking, again, I love the data. I wanted something that was not just theoretical, but solid. And so that's why I create the framework that you referenced earlier, the mastery map, which codifies those three pillars, because we need a roadmap. We need a guide. We need to get unstuck in this traffic jam. We need things that are rooted in science. So yeah, it's a real thing, but then how do we get out of it?
Yeah, I want to get into it. So here, what we center everything around at Redefining Wealth now is this idea of your ignited aligned vision. So once you know and are really excited about something that you see for yourself, not that has all this external, validation, or you need other people to say whether it's okay or not. But this is, I think by the time you hit this 47.2, you already know some things about yourself.
Yes.
At the time of this recording, I'm 43. And so many things started to change for me when I hit 40, personally and professionally. So I totally get that. And I feel personally like I have been guided and I'm being guided towards this new vision, new dream that I have for myself in a myriad of ways. But I love that you call it a map. So break down the three pillars of this transformational map that you have.
Oh, thank you so much, Patrice. So the three pillars are mindset, number one, meaning, number two, and milestones, number three. And I'll unpack that a little bit more. And as a recovering corporate marketing executive and brand person, I love alliteration. So, because memory is powerful. So therefore, the mindset, meaning, and milestones of the mastery map, if you love M's. But so let's break that down. So mindset is the first pillar. I call that the foundational pillar. So it's all about whenever you want to get unstuck, you have to change your mindset. And whenever you're feeling stuck, to me, mindset is all about identifying and reframing those limiting beliefs. Many of us, when we go through seasons of transformation, we feel that we can't because we're too old or too young, or I'm not the right ethnicity, or I'm not in the right zip code, or I don't have the right background. It's a fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And that's why this is rooted in science. I'm a big fan of Carol Dweck out of Stanford. So she wrote the book Mindset. And for those of your audience who haven't read it yet, please get Mindset. So this is all rooted in neuroscience. And so whenever you want to approach transformation, you have to rewire your brain from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, right? Identify those limiting beliefs. Why am I feeling this way? Can I achieve this? Can I launch a podcast? Well, why not? If you have all these limiting beliefs, how do you reframe that? And again, I mentioned that this is rooted in science. So as in my research, I was putting together this framework and I wanted to start with mindset. I was very excited to understand about the power of neuroplasticity. And if you don't know what that is, so basically it's rooted in neuroscience. And so that is the brain's way of rewiring itself and reorganizing itself to form those new neural connections in the brain to help you go from fixed to growth, right? And research, whether it's Carol Dweck's research or any neuroscience research, shows you of the power of mindset. So that's mindset. It's about identifying limiting beliefs, establishing growth goals, understanding that you're able to get unstuck, right? So the second pillar is meaning. That is all about purpose discovery. And from a neuroscience standpoint, the brain's reward system of releasing that dopamine, when you align your goals with something that's purposeful and meaningful, that's why meaning is at the heart of this framework in the middle. It's about discovering what is your purpose? How do you align them to your career goals at this time? Also, when I do workshops on this or exercises with meaning, the second pillar, we do what I call, and I call it the meaning alignment experience, MAX for short. And so what we do is that I help individuals first, they reflect on their values, they reflect on their skills, their superpowers, those flow moments that happened in the past, whether in your teens, your 20s, your 30s, when you were in flow. And then we align them also with your passions to your goals. And so it's about meaning alignment. How do you align your purpose and your skills and your superpowers to your goals? And then we work on crafting purpose statements. So that is meaning. It's really essential. It's all about purpose discovery. And then the last pillar, the third pillar of the framework is milestones. And so it's about breaking down those major goals in your life, personal and professional, into what I call micro milestones. So think about it in this traffic jam of life, or when you're on a journey. The original definition of a milestone is those little markers on the road that tells you which mile you are en route to your final destination. So a lot of times when we think of milestones, sometimes we only think these big, hairy goals, but it's about rethinking a milestone is any marker of motivation that's going to help you continue toward that journey. So milestone is about looking at what your goals are, breaking them down. And also when you're in your 40s or your 50s, a lot of times we don't have a lot of self-imposed milestones. We're living externally through other milestones, right? Because when you're young, you think about, I'm going to turn 18. I'm going to possibly graduate high school or college. I'm going to get my first job. And then later in life, I'm going to retire. I'm going to enjoy my grandkids. But when you're in that magical middle, it's like one long run-on sentence, right? No punctuations. I want to help you put those commas in those periods and take a step back and define what milestones you're going to achieve, break them down into micro milestones and macro milestones. And those are motivational markers of progress. So mindset, meaning, milestones. You can think about simply biology, the head, the heart, and the feet. Think about where you are, reframe your limiting beliefs, pour into your purpose, your meaning, and then establish where you want to go. And that is what I call the mastery map. And it's all based on neuroscience.
I love that my creator just keeps aligning me with all of these amazing people who just confirm over and over again that there is this collective energy to bringing us all into awareness of like our power to do these things. Because even in what you just said with the head, the heart, the feet, in our continuum for redefining wealth, when I talk about awakening, there's an I, but it represents, your mind, like mindset, right? There's an I. And then when I talk about redefining, our little image has a heart, and the heart is centered around kind of like a thought bubble. So you get to think through what this means for you, what would bring you joy, happiness, peace, all the things. And then our actualizing, it's a foot. It's like a little foot on the go. So it's so all aligned. But when you were talking about milestones in particular, what came up for me as I think about this audience and my clients, especially with women, the markers that we start to set are all based on other people.
That's it. Yes.
Once we get out of, I'm turning 18, 16, 18, 21, 25, 30, there becomes this moment where if you have children in particular, I would say, now you're doing things based on their ages. When they turn 5, when they turn 12, when they turn 16, when they turn 18, when they go off to college, when they do this. And a big thing that I see, we just talked about imagination and dreaming in the Institute for Redefining Wealth recently. And a big thing that I see is a lot of us can't dream for ourselves. We can only say what we want for other people. And the majority of the people who I find have that challenge are in their late 30s to mid 50s. They cannot see anything for themselves. If it doesn't start with, what about everybody else? There's like no, as you said, milestone for them. Do you see that a lot too?
I see it all the time. I mean, it's so natural when we in that traffic jam, Patrice, as you said, especially this is applicable to all sexes, ethnicities, but like for example, let's just talk about women, because it's interesting. A lot of what I do speak to a lot of women. Actually, my avatar, her name is Joyce, and she's 47 years old. Like I literally, and she's battling her own internal dynamics, but we do live vicariously through others, especially in the middle. And we don't take the time to set our own milestones. We don't take the time because we feel, number one, we feel guilty if we do that because we feel that we're so responsible for other pathways of success. And that's natural. That's normal. But what I'm passionate about, and I'm so encouraged and inspired by what you do, is giving individuals permission. It's giving individuals permission. So when I think about the framework, it's giving them literally permission to pause, to find purpose, and to plan, right? Mindset, meaning, and milestones. And so when you're able to do that, it's okay. If you're in the middle, if you're in the magical middle and you are purposefully excited and helping others to achieve their milestones and live through their milestones, that's normal, but you need to set your own goals. You need to take a step back and think about, how do I break that into micro milestones? Because if you don't, you're going to continually be stuck. You're not even going to be able to live vicariously through others because you're going to be so in this traffic jam of malaise that it's going to not be good for anybody. So I see that all the time, especially when it comes to professional women, women in the middle who are dealing with so many dynamics, and whether it's, external isms, I call the triple isms. It could be possibly racism, ageism, sexism. It's all of these things. And again, not saying that those factors are always contributing to someone's success and downfall, but that could be part of it. Or it could just be your own angst. Again, I see that all the time. So I'm glad you brought up that example. And I'm glad that you see it as well.
Hey, Purpose Chasers, let's talk about alignment. Now, I know you've got big dreams, right? But maybe you're feeling stuck, like no matter how much you achieve, something is still always missing. That's where Pillar Mastery comes in. This self-paced program is built on my proven 6 Pillars of Wealth framework, and it's designed to help you bring your ambition into alignment with the life you truly want, a life filled with purpose, balance, and success. With Pillar Mastery, you get lifetime access to an on-demand, self-paced experience that works on your schedule. And here's what makes it unique. The program includes our exclusive Pillar Progress Assessment. This is a powerful tool that just takes 15 minutes, but you will uncover your exact scores in each pillar and learn where to fine-tune the 5 building blocks of each one of those pillars. It is clarity like you have never experienced before. This isn't about quick fixes. It's about creating real, sustainable transformation. So if you're ready to finally bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be, head to pillarmastery.com. That's pillarmastery.com. And together, we will master the pillars of your life with more ease, more grace, and more peace. Adrion, how do people, from your perspective, give themselves permission to max, right?
Yes.
To redefine or maybe rediscover, reimagine what their purpose is in this season and actually own it, because we still know that there are other people who have been so accustomed to seeing you in a certain light, relying on you in a certain way, addressing you from a certain perspective. And now you are saying, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to do something different. What happens when people don't automatically accept or expect that?
Well, what happens, because it happens a lot, because I think we're naturally wired to kind of question those instances. But I try to, at least, and I see that you do it as well, is invite individuals and give people permission to observe best case scenarios and success case studies and other people that are doing it, and really leveraging the power of community, which is, to me, I always say, is a through line across all 3 pillars, right? The power of relationships, because you need those key relationships to help you, if you need to, based on different levels, reframe that mindset, reframe from a limiting belief to a positive affirmation. And it's great to have, whether it's a coach, a consultant, a colleague, a sister girl, a brother, anyone to help you reaffirm that. And so I think it's letting people kind of see there are other people doing that, but also showcasing and letting people know this is what happens when you don't have permission to pause. This is what happens when you don't reframe your mindset, when you don't set those goals, when you don't find purpose, because when you don't, you're leaving success on the table. You're leaving a pathway from malaise to mastery on the table, which, you have to break it down and make it. You talk a lot in the financial world as well. And then that's where your career was rooted in initially, and you've expanded. But when you start talking about the money, when you start hitting them in the pocket, especially for people in the middle season of their lives, because again, that is a key factor of our fulfillment, part of it at least. When you're not fulfilled, when you're stuck and stagnant and at a standstill, it doesn't allow for transformation, not only internally, but monetarily. And so when you start showcasing examples and showing them how the money you're leaving on the table for you and your family, when you don't live in a purpose-driven career, or you're not setting goals that are those milestones that are personal, professional, and financial, it'll speak to you, or the bill collectors will speak to you. And so sometimes based on their own pain points, you have to showcase where the gaps are. So I think that will help people kind of give them permission to be more proactive in these exercises.
So good. So good. Mid-career, you use that term a lot. And I want to unpack that in relationship to purpose, because what I find is that many people who feel that they are being called to pivot or evolve think that doing so with purpose automatically means a shift to entrepreneurship, as opposed to just allowing the purpose to evolve. I don't believe that purpose is synonymous with entrepreneurship. I believe in entrepreneurship. I believe you can take your gifts, your talents, your skills, and leverage them in a purposeful way somewhere. It doesn't have to be in your business, can be in someone else's business. And I find myself sometimes, even though I'm clear about who I serve, Sandy, my avatar is Sandy. Shout out to all the Sandys out there.
All right, Sandy.
Like, even though I'm clear about who I serve, I find myself doing that dance and having to just keep driving home to people that just because you are feeling called to expand and evolve, don't come over here unless you're ready. Like, don't
Right.
rush out here and keep saying that you believe, well, that means I need to go start a business. How do you navigate that mid-career itch with people, especially those that may assume that it means they need to leave their jobs and be entrepreneurs?
Oh, that's a great question. So I always like to say it. So let's start with the first about the vernacular of mid-career. And a lot of times when I speak about that, I always want to make sure people understand that when I speak of mid-career, it's not necessarily a stage or position. It is the mid part of your career journey, right? Because when we think about our career, and another thing too, I always like to reinforce that, we're living longer now, so we're working longer. And so when you're in the middle of your career journey, you can be 35 and consider mid-career. You could be 45, 55, or possibly 65 if you live into 100. So mid-career is just about the middle season of your professional journey. Now, let's talk about that internal decision that many people are making that you spoke about when it comes to pivoting or making a shift, and they're possibly thinking about entrepreneurship. When you are trying to find purpose, again, it could be a purpose-driven career or position, or just impact could be within an organization. But it's about aligning, let's say that if you're in an organization, it's about aligning the organization's goals or another organization goals with your own goal. And so when you talk about being in the middle season of your career, you have to really think about, and that's part of that meaning alignment experience, that max experience that we go through. What are your values? What are your skills? What are your superpowers? What are your passions and those flow moments? Now, if that exercise doesn't align with starting a business, of being a business owner, which again, there's a lot that goes into that, that's okay. And that's part of the meaning alignment experience exercise, because it's letting you know that's okay. It could be you are heads down at mid-level, but you're creating massive impact, this way and that way, by developing relationships, creating new opportunities, meetings, projects. It could be being a coach. It could be anything, but as long as it's aligned to what you feel your values are, your skills, your superpowers, that may not be entrepreneurship, that's okay. You're still living in a purpose-driven career and you're getting out of that traffic jam. And so, or it could be entrepreneurship. Maybe you have that itch and you know that you will thrive at creating a solution to a problem that needs to be solved. That's okay. So it's about letting individuals know when you're in the mid-season, because middle is all about from here to there, right? Again, that's where transformation lives. It's from here to there based on whether it's age, based on what goal you're trying to set. If it lives in entrepreneurship, great, but you need to truly understand what does that mean. And I know you speak a lot about this because, again, as a recovering marketing executive, there was a lot I had to learn and still learning about being a business owner. Like, you eat what you kill, right? I was used to getting a check every 2 weeks, bonuses. It's tough. There are many moments. There are many moments where I'm like, and I've thought about going back. I have in the past, but you have to, if you know that this is not what you're built for, that's okay. There are many people that are creating meaningful and massive impact within an organization. You talk about entrepreneurship. It's about owning your own path, because entrepreneurship is about ownership, right? You can own your path. You can own your purpose. You can own your mindset. You can own your goals and be entrepreneur. And that's what mastery is all about. Mastery is having domain over something. Again, mastery is not just about a final destination. It's about mastering, having domain and ownership over your pathway. And that's why I call it mid-career masteries. Owning your career path, whether you're in an organization or if you're outside of an organization, helping other organizations or individuals.
Again, the alignment is so real, because as you were speaking, I was thinking about Mastery and Momentum, which is our 9-month mastermind here. And this new iteration for 2025, I actually centered around a capstone project. And the reason that I wanted us to have a project is so that people who were in an organization of some kind out there didn't feel like, well, there's a few reasons I did it, but one reason is so they wouldn't feel like the only way that you could have meaning and impact was to launch a product or service out in the marketplace. And I think just because of the way I present as a thought leader and people knowing me as a podcaster, an author, or a speaker, that they automatically think that that's the only thing that I'm interested in helping people work out for themselves, right? Or walk out for themselves. And now we have people who are still corporate who are launching such impactful initiatives that are just things that they were super passionate about. They have a lot of purpose behind them. And it's bringing, I know, more meaning and fulfillment to their actual job. And to be able to create that, because I do believe that when you don't have something in your life that is giving you that fulfillment, that's where the root of financial mismanagement comes from.
Oh, so that's so true. That is so true.
It becomes the root. You are looking for ways to fill the void. And oftentimes I find that people end up buying things or buying people. They start buying stuff. Even in entrepreneurship, what people will do will go and buy every product, every software. They'll try everything on the market because they're still, like you said, they're trying to align with what they believe the purpose is. But if they haven't evaluated their goals, their values, their skills, their flow moments, now you're out here spending money on every tool that comes out and not leveraging the tools you already have, because again, that void, you're trying to fill the void. And even in entrepreneurship, you can cause yourself a lot of harm thinking that you're doing the more purposeful or noble thing and actually creating a big problem for yourself.
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, perfectly stated. Yes.
Oh, okay. So what's the number one challenge you have as a coach consultant with trying to help people get to this mid-career mastery? And you could be honest here. You could be honest here. Okay, Adrian.
Okay.
So let me tell you, this is how I want you to tell us. The thing that makes you want to just shake folks. Like you just want to say, wake up. What are you talking about? What's the number one thing that you see over and over again that you just wish more people understood about this season of their life?
So I have to pick one because there's so many. So let's pick a good one. I would say just the natural resistance to reinvent, because as individuals we can be stubborn and we can be molded into shape and form that we think is finite, and that's natural. But getting past that natural resistance to reinvent, to reimagine, reframe, recreate is a lot of times the bottleneck I feel that we need to get past. And it frustrates me a lot. It's a friendly frustration. I like to say it's a friendly frustration. It's okay. So we got to work a little harder at this. That's okay. And I went through it myself. I had a natural resistance to reinvent myself because again, 20 years, every 2 weeks, paycheck, management, comfortable. And then when I was shaken and shook and
Shooketh.
it was a resistance there. So sometimes it happens over time. So I would think, again, that I would say the answer to be the resistance to reinvent and reimagine is probably the biggest thing.
Ooh, I made a whole face when you said it too, because I know that I have personally experienced the resistance and had to give myself permission to dream a new dream, to see something different for myself, to see different possibilities. And that really does, as you said earlier, you need to have good community around you. You need to have a coach, a consultant, a brother, a sister friend, like you said, someone around you that can hold space for you as you go through the craziness of releasing that resistance, because you will feel like you're on a roller coaster. It's definitely a push and pull and a tug, a straddling the fence. It's like, I always say to my clients, you talk yourself in and talk yourself out. And that resistance is so huge, because you may say, I think I want to go in this direction. And it's like the little, angel and devil on your shoulder, Adrian, where the angel is like, yeah, you could do it. And the devil is like, who do you think you are?
Right.
This is what you're known for. This is what people expect. This is all you know. And that devil on your shoulder concept and the limiting beliefs and the questions, the poor questions that you ask yourself, really contribute to that sense of resistance.
Oh, yeah, that is so. And again, see, I'm so glad you brought it back to that. The word relationships. It always goes back to relationships. That's why I say, we have the 3 pillars, we have the 6 pillars, we have all but the through line is always relationships. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because again, relationships will help you release the resistance to reinvent, reimagine, to recognize the opportunities that are ahead of you. And so I'm so glad you brought that up. And just a reminder to everyone, lean upon those powerful relationships that I'll call those circle of influence, and no matter who it is, your friend, your brother, your family member, your colleague, the people you haven't even met yet. All right. Listen to me. The people you have not met yet that you may not visually see in this circle of influence, but the people that you should meet, the way you will connect the dots from where you are to where you want to be, and the people that you will meet, you have to put yourself out there and release the resistance to recognize those individuals that need to be in your circle of influence. And so that's very, very, very key.
I say for me, one of my greatest challenges as a coach is similar, and it's connected to the resistance, but it's people who have a butt in their spirit. That's what I call it, Adrian.
A butt in their spirit.
You got a butt in your spirit. So no matter what we say, no matter what I share, no matter how I pour in, they will say, but coach, but I'm different. But my industry is special. But my experience is this. And they just have the never ending butt in their spirit.
Ooh, man. They look, it's when you get back like that, a lot of times it's not a good thing. If for people that are old school, for that salt baby got back. But sometimes you got back, and that butt will keep you from moving forward. I love that. I see it so often. And I've been guilty of it as well, Patrice.
Me too.
I mean, we're human. We're human. The butts start to come in, but you have to get past it. You have to. That's a great way of saying that.
I think your magical middle becomes more magical the more willing you are to release the butt, to release the resistance to the reinvention. Because for me, clarity has come in the doing and giving myself the grace to be a student again, to be willing to learn new techniques, new ideas, new thoughts, new perspectives, new strategies, to always just be willing, like you were talking about mindset, to not be in that fixed mindset, but be in a growth mindset that allows me to know for certain that I am not here to be people's end all be all. I'm not here to be the guru. I'm just here to be a guide. And as a guide, I allow myself to make mistakes. I give myself permission to not get it right every time, as long as I'm allowing myself to keep moving forward. And that magical middle that I am finding myself in, I do think is indeed magical. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, some of the things that I'm doing now, 10 years ago, some of the things that I'm doing now, some of the relationships that I have, the way that I see life and navigate life, not just my career, but life is so completely different, yet magical. I feel like it's been miraculous for me to navigate and pivot and still maintain my integrity, my authenticity, and my vulnerability in spite of.
I love it. See, that's why I love real life case studies to reaffirm, the thesis that I have. Because that's why, again, it starts with mindset, Patrice. So it's about the reframing, right? The messy middle, the muddy middle, no, the magical middle. Because what you just said, you just reaffirmed, you have the intuition now, you have the wisdom, you have the skills, you have the stories, you're able to look back and look at those pivotal moments. And that's why this is magical for you, because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, for you, for me, some of the discernment that I have now, I did not and would not have had years ago, right? So when you're in the middle, what's great about the middle, that's why I call it the magical middle, is you reaffirmed, because you're at a point that you can leverage where you've been, but also you can see where you can go. That's magical. Just to be in a position where you barely can look back and look at all the jewels and the gems and the relationships you've nurtured. That's a scary place to be in. And then if you're toward the end, you can be grateful and have grace and be purposeful that you've lived this, but something, the runway is a little shorter. But when you're in that middle, you're in this sweet part of it where it's juicy, it's nice, it's warm, you can look back and say, great, look at what I can bring with me now. And then you can look ahead to see, oh my God, that's where I'm going to go. And that is the essence and the power of transformation and being in the middle, because again, that's why it's magical, because you can take the best from the past, they say past is prologue, and look at where you're going to go in your purpose. And so you just reaffirm, and I love the fact, and thank you so much for confirming the reason why I say magical middle, because if I said magical and people are like, look, there's nothing magical about it, no matter what you say, Adrion, okay, listen to what we're saying. Look at what we're saying. In the middle is where balance lies, right? But it's also where you have much runway left ahead of you. And again, we're living longer now. So if you're 42 years old, you have another 20, 30, 40, 50 years possibly of impact. We're living longer. We're living healthier. You may not do the same thing you were doing in your 30s or 40s, but you can create meaningful impact. We're sitting here right now having a powerful conversation, Patrice, about meaning, purpose, impact, milestones, mindset, and we're not next to it. Yes, we have seen each other in person, but we're doing this over technology. So think about where we can be moving forward. We could not have done this 10, 20 years ago. This didn't even exist. So that is why it's about, this is, and I'd say this all the time, and I didn't say it earlier. Yeah, mid-career mastery, the mastery map, these are all platforms, consultancies, coaching. No, this is a movement. I'm creating a movement, a malaise to mastery movement, a stuck in stagnation to transformation movement, a magical middle movement. So with any movement, you need great people on board. And that's why I'm so blessed to talk to you, because, you're living what you're living and you're reaffirming. And this is a movement. If you're stuck, it's about getting unstuck.
Yeah. And knowing that you don't have to do it alone.
You don't have to do it alone. You can't do it alone.
That's what these types of spaces, you can't do it alone.
You need those relationships to help you release the resistance, as you so perfectly stated earlier. You shouldn't do it alone. You can do it alone, but guess what? You won't do it alone.
I was very clear. I've been walking this path with who I call my primary care coach. So she's my primary care coach. So you know how you'll get a coach for marketing or for this or for that. She's just my primary care. And she's been walking with me since my 40th birthday. That's what I hired her for. And I'm walking into my 44th birthday. And even when all the things started happening and the ups and downs, I'm like, be very clear. You're safe. You're not coming off my budget. That's not happening. That's not happening, because I realize the importance of doing life with people. And I do consider her my thinking partner. You mentioned that you're a thought partner for your clients as well. And I feel the same about my clients. And being able to have support in what has maybe some would have characterized as my messy middle, because it started at 40, my 40th birthday, literally. But to be here now, 3, almost 4 years later, and be able to say, using your language that you taught me in Starbucks, the magical middle, I feel really good. I really appreciate the work that you do. Adrion, have I been mispronouncing your name?
It's all right. I don't want to say mispronouncing. You just didn't do it on purpose, but it's all good.
No, when I heard you say it just now, I was like, oh, I've been just calling this man the wrong name. So when y'all reach out, purpose chasers, and say, I heard you on Redefining Wealth, don't do what I did.
It's very common. It's very common. That's why, it's very common. But thank you for recognizing that. It's all good. If you call me Adrion, Adrian, but as long as it's you, I'm still going to answer the call. All right. But it's Adrion.
Adrion. So I'm going to call you what your mama intended. So Adrion, before I let you go, we're going to do the rapid wisdom questions.
Ooh,
so real
okay.
quick, just tell us the first thing that comes to mind.
All right. Let me get ready.
You're ready? You're centered? You're grounded?
I'm centered. I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right.
How do you define success?
Success is about significance, not just monetary. It's about significance.
How do you define wealth in 3 words or less?
Wealth is freedom, purpose, and passion.
What's one book that has helped you redefine wealth for yourself?
Ooh, oh my God. One book, see, because I'm a reader, so that was a hard one. One book that helped me redefine wealth for myself. I would say The Millionaire Next Door?
The Millionaire Next Door?
Yeah. Again, because I'm going way back, but I remember that was one of the earliest ones. Yes.
Love, love, love. Okay. And how can our audience connect with you?
Easy peasy. It is AdrionPorter.com. So I would say AdrionPorter.com is the website, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can just Google me. Google me or Perplexity me for you AI fans, Adrion Porter, and you can hit me at AdrionPorter.com, LinkedIn, IG. I'm everywhere. It's easy peasy. I think I'm the only Adrion in the world, Adrion Porter. So I have really great SEO.
I know that's right. When you say Google me, honey, he means business. Google me. I love it. Adrion, thank you so much for joining us on the Redefining Wealth podcast today. This was so good. And purpose chasers, listen, if you find yourself in midlife, mid-career, middle management, and you're feeling stuck, Adrion Porter is such a great resource. And I'm so grateful that we had this time together. I love that he talked about the power of community, especially when you're in a season like this. So I want to remind you, you have a Redefining Wealth community. This is not just about being like-minded. We are a like-hearted community, and we want to navigate seasons like this together with more grace, more ease, more peace, and more permission to allow ourselves to reinvent ourselves without all this resistance that we keep coming up with. I don't want you to have a but in your spirit. I want you to know that you have the right to dream a new dream. It is possible. And the best thing about the U curve that Adrion mentioned is that you get to that place, right? It might be 47.2, maybe you're 40, maybe it happens at 50, wherever you are when you get to that place. Remember, the second half of the curve, you're coming back up. And you're going to be able to live a life that is rooted in purpose and meaning and fulfillment and joy. But you have to be willing to do the work. So listen, come into the Redefining Wealth community a little closer. I would love to help you do that work. Adrion is a great resource. Go to AdrionPorter.com. Go figure out how you can do the work with him. We just want you to do the work. So until next time, love you guys so much. I'm so grateful for your support, for you listening. And until the next episode, I want you to go live your life's purpose, find fulfillment, and keep earning more without feeling like you have to be someone who chases money. I will talk to you later.